Have you ever been in the position where you're watching a scouting tutorial or a hunting show or you're on Onyx, Spartan Forge, whatever you use, and you see a layer or a feature that you're just not familiar with, therefore you're not using it, and it's underused in your scouting process? Today's video is all about stacking layers with intent. How do we use each layer and what answers do they provide us? Earlier this year, I wanted to go hunt an out-of-state public land PMA that I had never been to that state prior to going there for this hunting trip. I had 5 days to get the job done. So my e-scouting was really paramount to just get dialed in. I wanted to learn everything I could and scout as hard as I could online prior to getting there. That way I had less time spent boots on ground versus more time hunting. The WMA that I'm going to be using for this scouting tutorial is in the state of Kentucky. 7 out of the 10 hunts that I did see deers. I will say that overall, my scouting technique that I used and applying all the layers that I did use helped me hone in and dialed me into a better area, whereas just getting boots on ground, I would have spent a lot more time walking around. With that said, I never want to advocate for not doing boots on ground. Boots on ground is paramount. You have to do boots on ground, but the purpose of this video is to do less boots on ground. One, to give you more time to hunt, and two, to provide less pressure for the animals that you are trying to hunt. If I were asked what would be the two most important things to know when e-scouting, that would be knowledge of map reading and knowledge of the animal that you're hunting. If you don't know what white-tailed deer do, then, where they bed, where they eat, how they travel, if you don't know those answers, then you can have all the knowledge of map reading in the world, but really you don't even know what you're looking for. And then vice versa, if you know that deer really like to travel on benches, but you don't know how to find a bench on a map, then that could cause an issue too. So I'm going to go through the process of what these 5 pins are, what they mean, why they're there, and all of that. And then all of the layers that answered the question to drop that pin there. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to click on one of these pins. We're going to click on this one right here. In Onyx, you can go over here. Once you click on a pin, it's going to come up. You have the wind calendar, weather, land, all that. Right down here in waypoint tools, you have wind direction. You can set your optimal wind for that specific area if you want to. All I do is click show current wind just to give me an idea of what that wind is doing at the given time when I'm scouting. And boom, that is set. I am in just standard satellite right now. And next we're going to go into hybrid. Hybrid, if you don't know how to read a map, I do have videos prior to this one that does talk about a little bit of both of the things that I mentioned earlier. How to read a map, how to read these contour lines, what the fat line means, because that was a big ordeal earlier on in the hunting season where everybody's posting these pictures right here of just this, what you see on the screen right now, and they're asking in these hunting groups like, hey, where should I set up? 9 times out of 10, the old heads are going to say, hey, boots on ground. And I mean, they are right, but how can we put less boots on ground? That's really what, these guys are asking for. They're asking to be educated on how to read these contour lines, essentially. And you also have a lot of comments saying hunt the fat line. For instance, here is one of those fat lines, just as a quick review. And what it means is just a flatter elevation than the rest of this. So you have all these contour lines that are pretty close together, and then they start getting a little wider, and then this one gets pretty wide right there. That's just telling you that that area right there is not as steep an elevation as down below. Going through leaf off imagery, that is one of the first layers that I use. What can leaf off imagery tell you? So leaf off imagery can show you old logging roads, bedding areas. It'll show you that clear, and it'll also show you trails and then edges. So those field edges, it doesn't necessarily pop those out right here necessarily. I mean, you got a little bit of an edge there and a little bit of an edge here, but in other areas that leaf off imagery will definitely help you. Leaf off imagery, all it does is it shows you what the terrain is going to look like from sky view in late fall to winter time frame. Can you use it in your scouting process for hunting earlier on in the season? Absolutely. It's gonna show you those bedding areas, and it also could show you where your oaks are going to be. We know that this area right here with all this forage or foliage during the late season, that could depict a bedding area. And that also could drive you away from saying that those are probably oaks, because we know oaks lose their leaves. White oaks drop acorns earlier in the season, then you have your red oaks for later in the season. But all of this area right here, it could be a lot of trees. I'm not saying that, hey, these are all definitely oaks. No, absolutely not. But we know that this area probably has less oaks than this area. So that is a few things that you can learn from leaf off imagery. And this scouting process that I use is layered in itself. So let's say there's no pins on this area just yet. I am just looking at this specific spot. It's about 25 acres that I'm looking at from like this over here out to over here. That area is what we're looking at right now. And I'm trying to find if there's a good spot in here that I want to go put boots on ground for. First question that got answered is potential bedding area. There. And then this area kind of sticks out to me because it looks like you got vegetation here and vegetation here, but not really in between those two. So that kind of points to me like something might be there, but I don't see it sticking out just yet. So that would lead me into going into that next layer. We're going to go into topographic and lidar. So you have topographic here, and I don't really use that on Onyx. I know topographic well because I'm used to reading maps from the military career. Going into lidar and why you should use it over just standard topographic, and why I would absolutely add it into your layered scouting process, is it really depicts benches, which you have right here. And then just like that area before where I told you, so you got the hybrid with leaf off, you got right here, vegetation, and then right along this line, you have really nothing. And then when you go into lidar, boom, old logging road is what that looks like to me, or old trail, just forgotten trail. It could be one of the other. Regardless, it's something that potentially could be used by deer and by myself for access. So that's something that sticks out to me. And then also this bench here, and then this over here, this little depression looking thing, that sticks out to me as well. Going into it further. How can we go into it further? So you go over here, you see hunt map layers. Do not pay attention to all of the states that I have turned on. I might have a bit of a problem, but that's my business, not yours. Leave me alone. So going down, you have land and access. That helps with, you got wilderness areas, conservation areas. We got all kinds of great stuff on here. One that I use mostly is slope, angle, and aspect. We're going to go into that one. And then another one that I use a lot of is trees, crop, and soil. You have a lot of layers on here that you can use. I use Acorn producing oaks mostly. I typically just do my own Google research for most of those. But slope, angle, and aspect, Acorn, I use those a lot. What can they tell us? So we're going to turn on Acorns first, and this is your Acorn producing oaks. Do not use this if like, boom, there's definitely acorns there, right? Use it at your discretion. And the reason I say that is because sometimes you'll have acorns, zoom out here, over here in this area specifically, you got an acorn flat in the middle of the creek. Now, putting boots on ground, this specific area, this creek right here is 25 feet across. There ain't no acorn tree right there, okay? But how we can use it, going back over here, how we can use it is just getting us dialed in as far as a prior video talked about compounded terrain features. This one's going to talk about compounding these layers. So if you find an area that you like the terrain features it has for the deer that you're hunting, and then you add acorns into it, that could give you just that much more reason to go check it out. With that said, we got the logging road here. We got the possible bedding area here, possible bedding area over here. And then we got this bench right here. So far, that is what stuck out to us, as well as we got that little depression over there that could be a watering hole, and it's got mixed oaks on it. We also have this pretty big flat land right here on top of this ridge cap that you could go check out that says it does have oaks. And then what are we going to turn on next? We're going to turn on that slope, aspect, angle. You got the legend right up here that explains it. We know that deer like to conserve energy. We also know that terrain can, the slope can kind of show you, it can show you funnels, as well as it can show you security places for these animals. So how can we depict that? You have that bench that you can't really see too much sticking out from the lidar right now, but it's in that yellow spot there. So I'm turning it off real quick one more time. So you see this bench here? I wouldn't say that's a very prominent bench, but it's there. When you turn on that slope angle, you see it a lot more. Boom. I would absolutely say that this right here is a travel corridor for deer. And when turning on acorns, you have possible bedding over here. You have this little logging road over here. And then you have right here that pinch point, that funnel where deer would use this bench to travel. And then up here, you got acorns, and you have potentially acorns once again, but you have security for them potentially on the left and the right side. So this would be a good potential spot to go and scout. With that said, this area over here looks like it's at the top of a drainage, and then you got the fatter line here, and you got the water hole. So putting yourself in somewhere in here could potentially be a good spot. And that's just from e-scouting. Obviously, you need to go get boots on ground. This right here, you got the yellow on this spur, and then you have red on each side. I'm gonna turn the acorn back off so you can see a little bit better. You got red on this side, and you got red on this side. So if for whatever reason deer found themselves down here, maybe for water, or they found themselves up here and they wanted to go down here for whatever reason, they would not necessarily travel on this. More likely they would travel on this. That's how you use the slope layer to show you those travel funnels and those pinch points. So potentially that is a good spot to go check out. However, with that said, I don't see too much. I mean, there's some acorn down here, but I mean, there's a lot of acorn up here too. So I don't see too much reason for a deer to come down here. That's just me. I'm not saying don't go check it out. I would possibly go check it out. If the wind were blowing this way, downward, the opposite of where it's blowing right now, you could use that as an access point, and that would be easier for you to walk up to go and scout these spots. Okay, so we're gonna go into a different area real quick. It is public land. If you know the area that I'm, once again, I said I'm in Kentucky. If you know this specific spot and you want to go hunt these pins, go ahead. Public land, it's your land too. I did have successful scouting. I did see a lot of deer, so maybe go check them out. Now, with this area right here, we're going to go back over to satellite real quick. All right. So these specific spots and what I liked about, we're going to go with this pin right here. Using all of the layers that I just showed you, we're just going to go through them real quick and then see if you can see what sticks out to you and what stuck out to me to drop this pin right here. Leaf off imagery. There's that edge line. Potential bedding, potential bedding, potential bedding. Potential bedding on this east side slope here. Moving into lidar. All right, and then now we're going to turn on our acorns. Potential acorns. Next, we're going to turn that off real quick, and then we're going to turn on our slope angle. Okay, so going into the spot, why I dropped that pin there. We're going to turn it off real quick, and boom, you have this bench going pretty much along this entire hillside, as well as another bench right there. And then in that area, you do see potential for some acorn and then our slope. So what this area tells me is you have a good bench going into this area right here. You also have another bench going into this area. And then up top, you don't have any red there. So you have an access point here, potentially an access point here, and then an access point here. And then everywhere else, down below, you have this steep terrain that could provide security for the deer, as well as you have the bench that we know they like to travel on, as well as they have food potentially in that spot too. So good potential for a group of does or a mature buck to be hanging out in this area. If a mature buck knew about this area, right, he's got a good travel corridor. He's got good security. It potentially provides security. And if you were beating face up this one, you'd be huffing and puffing. And on top of that, going back to hybrid real quick, this area right here, leaf off imagery, slope kind of tells you it's going to suck to walk up, but nothing beat boots on ground. This area right here was brutal terrain to walk through. Now, that slope right there, this here, walking up this was not hard. It was very easy to do. However, the wind blowing the way that it was blowing the day that I went to this spot, I was hoping for, it was like right around there that I stopped. I was going to try to go up and in to this spot. But as I'm walking up, a deer over here blew me. She was like in this general area walking on this line right here. And then as I got up here, my wind was kind of blowing this way. It sucked, but it is what it is. Should have came in from this side. Oh well. Lessons learned, right? Yeah, something blew me in this area. They were in the perfect spot. Even though they couldn't see me, they knew I was there. And they potentially couldn't even hear me because walking up this was like nothing. You know, I was walking real slow, real quiet, and it was raining that morning, so I was almost silent. But dang, if they couldn't smell me. So it was a really good spot for something to set up in there, that's for sure. Another spot we're going to go into is over here, and going into this area right here, and why I dropped this pin here. So this could potentially be a thermal area because you have terrain going upward slightly there. You have terrain going upward slightly there. It's mostly flat. But you have all these converging terrains just coming down into this one spot. So it could be like a wind funnel. With that said, going to this specific area, you have all this red right here and all this red over here. So exiting and entering, so say they're going, we're going to turn on graphic real quick, turn off that slope angle. So you have all these drainages here. You got a bench line going right there, and then kind of steepish terrain. And up here, you got that hilltop. Okay. And then going back to leaf off, you have a lot of potential for bedding area all up in this area right here. Then tying that into your slope angle and tying that into acorns. Okay. So you got a potential acorn flat right here as well. And you have that red there and red on this side. So this area right here, turn off the acorn real quick. This area right here would be a good entry and exit point for them to come down into this flat and eat on acorns and have that wind, funnel, blowing wind all sorts of ways. So it would be a difficult area to hunt. However, you could set up here, catching them going in and out. You could set up down here if the wind is right. But wind and thermals are going to be a pretty big factor in this specific spot. So that's today's video. If you want to know more on anything as far as scouting, mapping, map reading, deer knowledge, or anything that applies to being outdoors, and if you want any of that, go ahead and drop a comment, like and subscribe. Yeah, give me what you got. Let me know what you want to learn. Have a good one.